Good evening, everyone. We are going to begin Campus Council. Is everyone all good with the clickers? Yeah? Okay. So we're going to begin with roll call. AC Welch. Here. Reverend Becker. Here. VP AA Murphy. Here. VPSA Tombu. Here. Treasurer Ercolani. Here. Assistant Treasurer Weber. Here. Ace Chair Mystic. Here. Services Coordinator Tibatamwa. Here. Concerts Chair Christensen. DOC Logan. Here. Senator Stallings. Here. Senator Christian. Here. Senator Moen. Here. Senator Vale. Here. Senator Pumi Diala. Here. Senator Jones. Here. Senator Lloyd. Here. Senator Zernig. Here. Senator Zernig. Here. You're here? Okay, cool. Senator Nieto. Here. Senator Cure. Here. Senator McDowell. Here. Senator Herbert. Here. Senator Pietro Santa. Here. Senator Collinger. Here. Senator Pierce. Here. Senator Knapp. Here. Senator Timberwolf. Here. ACES Co-Director DeRoche. Here. ACES Co-Director Coleman. ACES Outreach Coordinator Preston. Here. Green Fund Co-Chair Higginhauser. Here. Technical Advisor Gould. Here. Okay, cool. Next item on the agenda, we're going to have the approval of the minutes. So does anyone second this? VPAA Murphy. All right, we're gonna open up the little voting quickie things. Is there any way I can write this? Okay, and the polls are open. A is in favor, B is opposed, C is abstaining, and that is for the approval of the minutes from the last campus council. We need 2 more. Alrighty. Oh, and everyone in favor, the minutes have been approved. Woo! Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda, we have public comments, announcements, and additional events. So does anyone have any public comments, announcements, or additional events? VP Murphy?
The office-based committee that was created last week will be meeting this week on Thursday from 10 to 11 in JRC 222, the SGA offices. Come if you want to.
Thank you. Councilor Chair Christensen?
Hello. Okay, Fall Fest is this Saturday. It's going to be really awesome from 10 in the morning to 6, and then there will be a concert later in the evening and crafts later in the evening as well, so it's kind of all day.
Any further comments, announcements, or events? Seeing none, we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the ACE budgets. So, ACE Chair Mystic, if you'd like to present those.
Yeah. So we had 2 budgets today. The Spring Awakening, which is basically a student-led map of a theater production that we funded for the past few years. So they requested 1,000, we approved 750. We deferred 250 of the funding to DOC just because it was specifically for outreach materials and we wanted to see what DOC could fund before they came back to us. And then we also required an itemized list before reimbursement just to get a good gauge of, what they actually bought. And then Food Bazaar, which is, we're presenting now. Are we doing that now? Yes? Yes? Okay, Food Bazaar. Just a quick thing, they requested $2,680, which was previously kind of what we had a good idea of what we were going to allocate. But we approved for $4,000 just because Quinn is going to actually explain that reasoning as to why we approved more.
So for ISO Food Bazaar, they receive a variety of different funding sources. The primary funder of ISO Food Bazaar is SGA. However, in the past, they've received a significant amount of money, over $1,000, from ticket sales. We decided in committee that it was a bit strange for SGA to fund an all-campus event, which you had to pay to get into. The $5 fee for tickets, as it has been in the past. And so we in committee decided that in order to really hit the mission of SGA and make it so we weren't just funding this random event that was paid for by us and other departments, but also required students to pay their own way for an all-campus event, we decided to supplement their tickets. And so so this year what would happen if you all approve this budget is that rather than having people have to pay $5 per ticket, everyone would get a ticket for free until tickets ran out.
So first, the person or the organization that's requesting funding, if you have anything to add to this budget? No? All good? Okay, ACE Chair, do you have anything else to add? Can we get a mic to ACE Chair Mystic?
Also, with this, we'll be starting a conversation with Michael Sims and other institutional organizations just to talk about how we can make this not be mostly on the burden of SGA and students to have to pay for this, because I think that, and I'm sure all of you guys can agree that this is a very big event for our school, and I think that the school should have to pay for this and not us. So, at least most of it, We still support this and we still think this is important, but we also want to make sure that we're holding the school accountable for paying for certain things. Thank you.
Do we have any questions on this budget? Any comments? Senator Curie? Can we get a mic to Senator Curie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Quinn. That's absolutely amazing that you're willing to, reimburse the tickets. But I do have a question about the tickets. Is how are you going to distribute it to the students since it's going to be for free? Is it going to be like a first come, first serve kind of format?
So what we're going to do is we got the box office at Bucksbaum to sort of hold on to a certain number of tickets. So once we have all the recipes submitted, we're going to come up with a number of how many tickets we're selling. And a certain number is going to be set aside for students, and those tickets will go out on a first come, first served basis. But the invitation is also open to host families and other members of the community. So it all depends on, we have like a certain number of tickets set aside for students.
Gotcha.
Do we have any further questions on the presentation of this budget? Any comments? No? Okay, seeing none and that it was over $1,000, we are going to have to vote on the approval of this budget. Senator Stalling? Yeah, can we get a mic to Senator Stalling, please? Thank you. I make a motion to move to vote. You have a motion to the previous question? Okay, do we have anyone seconding that motion? I think it was Assistant Treasurer Weber. Okay, so all those in favor to move into the voting procedure, can we just get hands? All those opposed? Abstaining? Okay, we're going to move into the voting procedure for the approval of this budget. So the polls are now open. A is in favor, B is opposed, C is abstaining for the approval of the budget for the ACE budget. I'm sorry, I forget the specifics. What it was called. What was that? Food Bazaar, thank you. We're waiting on one more. Senator? So, Senator Bale, we're just voting on the approval for the ACE budget for Food Bazaar. So, A is in favor, B is opposed, C is abstaining. That is everyone. So, with all those in favor, the budget passes for ISL Food Bazaar. Okay, seeing that all the ACE budgets are presented, we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the budgets for Spc and Services. So whoever's presenting these budgets, if you'd like to describe this. Services, Timetable. Sorry, Services Coordinator.
Alright, we had 3 budgets today. 2 were in SPC and 1 was in services. I'll go ahead and start with SPC. We had the Dropping Beats Beatbox Club. Last week we asked them to go back and go over the numbers in their budget and provide better specificity. They were great. They were actually quite brilliant. If you want to see that budget, you should come see it. It's a beautiful budget. The second was the baking club. They asked us for $64, but unfortunately they didn't have vegan options, so we elected to give them $10 extra so that they had a vegan snack option. Usually they do, but one of the co-chairs who was in charge had to quit due to time commitment, so that's why they were sort of left scrambling. In services, we had the Anthro SEPC come forward for community meal, and we approved it in full.
Do we have any questions on these budgets? Any comments? No? Seeing none, since this was approved, we can just move on to the next item on the agenda. Thank you. And item number 6 is resolution to change the name of Campus Council to Student Senate and presiding officer to President of the Senate. President Becker, would you like to discuss this? Not discuss, but present this.
So the resolution was sent out to everyone. Hopefully, if anyone had any questions, they had the opportunity to read it. I could read it. It's kind of really procedural. But essentially, this is just a resolution to rename Campus Council with the stipulation that the acronym for Student Senate shall be GCSS.
What was that?
Eddie, can you pull it up on the screen?
stipulating that it'd be, if it's abbreviated to GCSS, and otherwise would be referred to as the Senate colloquially. If anyone has any further questions, I can answer those. Otherwise, I figure we'll go ahead and vote on this.
Do we have any questions or comments on this resolution?
Can I move?
President Becker?
Can I motion previous question?
Yeah, of course. Does anyone second that motion? I saw Senator Timpewell. I think I saw your hand first. So we are going to, do that. So all those in favor of moving to the voting procedure? Could you raise your hands high if you're in favor of moving to the voting procedure? Thank you. All those opposed? All those abstaining? All right. So not everyone raised their hands, but majority was all those in favor. So we're going to move into the voting procedure for the resolution to change the name of Campus Council to Student Senate and Presiding Officer to President of the Senate. The polls are open. A is in favor, B is opposed, C is abstaining. We need 2 more people. All right, and the polls are now closed with 15 in favor, 1 opposed, and 2 abstaining. This resolution passes. So the resolution to change the name of Campus Council and PO has passed. Yeah, all right. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is going to be a discussion on feedback on the Associate Director of Student Activities position. Yeah, that was a big deal, but all right, so it's a discussion, feedback on the Associate Director of Student Activities position. So whoever is leading this discussion, I turn it over to you, Senator Gumidiala.
Yeah, so.
No, it's not on.
Hello. All right. So I posted a survey last week on the current Grinnell students Facebook page asking for feedback on how people felt about this new position. And I actually got 44 responses, which I felt was relatively good and more than I was expecting. Just kind of wanted to get the word out there and find out what people thought. So I was planning on kind of compiling the responses and putting it in an email and sending it to Sarah Motion Ross. So that was what I was planning on doing with that, and if anyone had any other suggestions or feedback, or if anyone wanted to see the survey responses, I could send those out to you as well. They're, most of them are anonymous unless people put their email in if they wanted feedback, updates and follow-ups. So.
Senator Logan? No, it's not on. Hello. Ooh, that was fast.
Oh.
What? Don't worry about it. All I wanted to say was that I really commend and appreciate you, just as a senator, going forward and getting feedback, and I think that's really cool. If you're going to continue to do that, I suggest you might talk to, who's I thinking? You might talk to leaders of impacted groups. So that, because you've gotten a lot of feedback from general student bodies, so you might talk to leaders of this group or that group, how do you think that this might impact you or that might impact you? And if you want to brainstorm strategies anytime of how to talk to people about this, you know what outreach committee is. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for just going ahead and doing the work.
Thank you. Yes, I will definitely do that. Do we have any further comments or questions on this report or discussion? Senator Gumidiala, do you have anything further to add?
No.
All right. Thank you. We're now going to move on to the next item on the agenda, item 8, which is a discussion on student handbook changes to academic and conduct policies. So, Senator Jones, would you like to start us off?
Sure. So, over the summer, the Office of the Dean of Students of Grinnell College instituted a new policy regarding eligibility for student leadership positions. The Campus Life Policies webpage states, student employees who serve in positions of leadership or in a safety-related role on campus must be in good conduct and academic standing, i.e. not on conduct probation, to be eligible for those positions. So that's a quote from the SMB about a month ago. So today I was hoping we can kind of establish student senate's position on this policy and hopefully determine some actionable steps we can take to remove it. So while I understand and support the value of keeping students with heavy misdemeanors out of student senate, I think a lot of the rhetoric driving this policy last semester was about keeping Title IX offenders out of campus council, which I think is great. However, I think what the policy is now is far too general and limits students kind of found in trouble of much smaller offenses, perhaps just like finding weed in their room, and it kind of limits and negates their voice in campus council, which I think is awful for an institution that's so committed to accessibility and inclusivity, kind of projecting this message that we don't value students with those types of acts that put them on probation, I think is awful. So I'd like to have a discussion about how we as a group feel about that and what we can do about it. Also, I think members of cabinet last semester acknowledged that this policy is likely to disproportionately discriminate against students of color and low-income students, which is a huge deal, and we should be totally mindful of that. So.
Thank you, Senator Jones. Beginning discussion. Ace Chair Mystic, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. So thank you, first of all, thank you so much for bringing this to discussion. I think this is a very serious, very impactful conversation that we need to have in terms of who it's affecting, like you said. I think especially with the added thing with the academic portion, I think is also very interesting in telling of the conversation that's being talked about, like with this whole situation. I think that the fact that like the expectation is that you need to have, you know, a certain grade GPA in order to be a leader, in my mind, is just ridiculous. I think that that often negates a lot of issues that students have to go through, whether that's, you know, mental health or, you know, personal experiences, or even the fact that like sometimes you have to work and that impacts your grades. And like, you know, I think that, I don't know, I think that definitely we need to do something about it, or at least voice whatever concerns we can collectively as a body.
Thank you, Ace Chair Mystic. Does anyone else have anything to add to this discussion? DOC Logan.
Some context that might be useful for non-cabinet members that we've discussed, because when we saw this come out, I was like, you know, I'm not going to say it for the minutes, but anyway, something like interesting about the dynamic is that it's in the student handbook, but because we still run our own elections, there's a matter, like we have power in that they need us to actually implement it. The implementation mechanism right now is that any student that is in good conduct or is in bad conduct or bad academic standing would have to remove themselves or like hold themselves accountable not to run. So we've kind of seen that like as a positive, because the cabinet, like correct me if I'm wrong, but we kind of said we're not gonna lead our election saying, you know, like these people can't run or like have to step down. But yeah, that's just like an interesting nuance right now, is that like there's what's in the handbook and then what's happening like effectively. And I could have been wrong on that.
Senator Stallings.
I have a couple of questions, because when I last sat as a senator, we were still discussing this, so I want to know what's changed since then, because I haven't been on campus for 9 months, so maybe there was something actually like really insane that happened, like maybe there was a huge change or something. But also, I would really like to hear from voices that are dissenting to us talking about this, or to like us having a stance about it, because I think that a lot of people are probably on board with us not being for that. And so if there are people that aren't, I think for the purposes of the discussion being more efficient, that we want to hear from people that really are not for this for some reason, because I want to hear your opinions and why that is. Because otherwise we can go ahead to move to trying to come up with like a stance for SJ to have.
Treasurer Ergolani.
To provide some context to what happened since the end of fall semester last year, this issue was brought before the spring session of Campus Council in spring 2018, and was shot down, and anything that had been passed at the end of fall semester was repealed by SGA. Yeah, so the discussion on our part ended with us saying that we did not think that this was a valuable contribution, or we thought that the harm, as senators, we believed that the harm that this policy could bring, or had the potential to bring, especially as it introduced more administrative oversight over the elected officials of the student body, would outweigh any benefits that it could bring.
Senator Jones?
So while I think for now we're doing okay because we can kind of enforce it on our own, when the student activities director comes in, maybe that'll change, and I think that's something we need to get ahead of. That way we're not caught off guard. Also, I think it being in the student handbook is already like a stain on our, our rep, and I think just kind of sending that message, even though we have not supported it with our voices, is something I'm concerned about, and I wonder if that discourages people from running in the first place, even if they don't know that they can kind of stay quiet about that.
Is that a hand, Senator Pedro Santa?
Kinda. I guess the question is, like, I definitely agree with what you brought up, but then in relation to the way that like academics can affect people's ability to enter into like sports teams and whatnot, like, I guess my question is if it's restricting people's ability to have a leadership role or to access Grinnell, like SGA, then why not talk about or see how it can also affect other people's ability to access different resources, whether that be athletics or, I mean, off the top of my head, even like off-campus job opportunities and stuff like that. So I guess like why specifically is it a problem when it's in relation to like SGA, but not when it's to athletics? Because I know a lot of students of color are affected by not being able to be in athletics, and I just, out of curiosity, yeah.
Senator Tuckerville, do you guys mind turning some of your name tags more this way? I'm sorry, I just can't see who's raising. Thank you so much.
For athletics, I don't think it's set by Grinnell, it's by D3 rules, so I don't think Grinnell can do anything about that. That answers your question.
Treasurer Ercolani?
Just a note for everyone, like, campus council had already voted down this proposition. There's nothing stopping us from just voting here now, not like in any formal resolution, but just like a general vote to say, I do not like this, if you want.
DOC Logan?
We've talked I've talked with some people about like doing more resolutions this year as a way to like more formally put our thoughts on the record. So this might be a really good way to get Reform Committee up and started, which I know is coming up on the agenda. Maybe by working on a resolution to say like what our thoughts are on this, maybe coming up with formalizing what our implementation of it is if it stays in the handbook, like taking our stance on how we're gonna deal with it, and maybe like vote on that in the coming weeks.
Senator Tuckerville?
Talking about the conduct standing part, can we define more clearly what we would want, like, constitute as like conduct warning or probation? Because like some of the offenses might have been minor, some of them might have been more serious, so we need to find a way to define that before we go ahead with this, I guess.
So before we move into making an official resolution, are you inquiring if we could define what a conduct violation is? Yeah. Would anyone like to speak on that? VPAA Murphy?
All right, so in theory, to answer this question about the different levels of like conduct status, JUDCO, Judicial Council, which is a panel of 3 students, and then Dean of Students Ben Newhouse, and an Associate Dean of Students once they hire one, and myself all sit and talk about specific cases. The 3 judges are the ones who make the decisions on what the conduct outcome is. A conduct warning is something that has absolutely like no impact on any SGA things. On like most other job opportunities on campus, I know that like this handbook policy is something that's already in place for other areas on campus, like Grinnell advocates have to like pass through these like requirements. But conduct probation is meaning that it will last most likely for 1 full semester, and it means that those students have just certain things stripped from them, like the ability to be a part of this, but it shouldn't have any reflection on any like rights as a student in general. As far as what gets you these different levels, anything that's related to drugs at all is conduct probation. That's something that also the JUCO judges have like nothing they can do about it. That's just also a student handbook policy. Dean of students will put conduct probation for anything that's related to drugs, period. Other than that, it's completely up to the JUCO judges, who I personally have a lot of confidence in. Our JUCO judges this year are excellent and on a caliber that I believe is better than previous years at looking at things critically and trying to understand student perspectives. So hopefully that answers your question just about general conduct practices. I know that last year rundown was sort of given similarly to this, but if anybody has any questions otherwise about the process in general, I'd be happy to answer those too.
Senator Zerning?
Yeah, so Senator Jones mentioned this earlier, but I think that the issue, as a student last semester, heard things about Title IX violators in Campus Senate, and I think that how do we address the issues with this policy as they relate to exclusion of low-income and people of color students, but also address that because that seems like something that's separate and an issue.
Treasurer Ercolani?
So again, that was something that we discussed last year, and it was presented to us in that we couldn't simply, we agreed that that is the area where this policy would be helpful to the student body in making student government a more accessible space and a more open space for everyone on the campus. However, the Title IX office has informed us, and the Student Affairs office has informed us, and the Dean of Students office has informed us, that if we ask them to explicitly just weed out on Title IX cases, that would be a FERPA violation, or not a FERPA violation, but a privacy violation, because then we would know explicitly why somebody was not allowed to run for a position or hold a position or was asked to step down from a position. We can have our own policies regarding that if we so chose. However, we would not have the ability to actually know.
Thank you. Senator Jones? Could we get a microphone to Senator Jones? Thank you.
Would it be possible to just instead of weeding out Title IX violations, just kind of excluding any drug offenses? I remember when I looked at this list last semester, most of them seemed kind of out there, like stuff like arson and like things that don't really happen. And there might have been like Title IX or drug offenses, and then like one other thing that seemed kind of like no big deal, you know, and then like everything else seemed like a very serious offense. And I was wondering, instead of just doing Title IX, can we like do it from the other end and just get rid of the drug offenses and anything else we, as a collective unit, deem is not really serious enough to exclude you from having a voice? Don't know.
Treasurer Ercolani?
Pretty sure we can't. Just because when it rises to that level, the distinguishment can still be made in that it wouldn't necessarily be a violation of privacy rights under the Title IX process, but it would be under the campus conduct process. We're not supposed to know who does what or who's found responsible or not in any sort of case. As I'm sure VPA Murphy can attest to, the JUCO judges are sign a privacy agreement and or at the very least are not allowed to talk about the cases that they adjudicate. And I think that our impression was, or as it was presented to us last year in Campus Council, that any sort of carve out of anything would be too much of an infringement on the privacy of these people that have been found responsible.
VPSI Tombo? Could we get a mic down? Thank you.
I just have a question. How is that different from the way the policy is set up right now? Couldn't we follow like the same format? Like,
Senator Zernig?
What if we just included, since it was mentioned that we have like our own implementation of this policy as like a self-gov exclude yourself, what if we included a statement in election when we like submit to the student body their open elections, if we included a statement that included this policy and said like the official SGA or the official Senate position on this is that if you feel various events or whatever do not disqualify you, and I feel like we could include it in that way and have it be censored.
Assistant Treasurer Weber?
I think it's also just worth noting that SGA has expressed like a lot of disagreement with this policy. Like we did last semester, it was unanimous. I think the issue that we're facing isn't necessarily SGA's approach to this policy, but the fact that basically we were completely disregarded in our statement about what we thought, and that the policy was instituted anyways. So I'm not sure, like I think it's important that we talk about how we feel about this policy and what we want to see, but I think what we really should be talking about is like, how are we going to approach the overarching policy that has now been put into place in spite of what we previously decided?
Ace Chair Mystic?
So I have two things to say. So the first thing is that as far as I'm aware, ACES does a background check for when they get applicants. Like it does it automatically whenever names pop up, and then the names, like it goes through the school before we even get, or ACES gets names to even like go through as applicants. So it's an anonymous thing, it's a background check, it checks, I'm pretty sure it checks to see a good enough amount. I also don't know what that does, but there is a process that happens with ACES, I know. So it does a background check. The second thing is to go off on the earlier point about the school handling it. As far as I'm aware, the two people who presented this idea for the institution of this policy into SGA last semester, they had gotten the idea, not gotten the idea, but were in conversation with the then dean of students, as well as the person in charge of, what is it, like conduct hearings. And then from there, the decision was made over the summer. So I don't know, I feel like it's similar to a lot of things that happen where it's like SGA says we don't want something to happen, and then over the summer they decide to make it a thing. So yeah.
AC Welch? Can we get the mic down? Thank you.
So we might not have the ability to like restrict certain conduct violations from precluding people as being members of SGA and allowing others. But if we are aiming to do some kind of resolution in response to this, which we could do at Reform Committee next week, we can talk about that. Maybe something we can do is like talk about as an organization and a community, what sort of conduct policies do we see as being like disqualifying from being a leader on campus? And then sort of, I mean, if it's not implementable anyways, like if it is a resolution in response to a rule that we are unable to change, then it is like a statement of our values, and which I think is valuable, and maybe like a roadmap for we will do whatever we can to stick to those values like while being forced to operate under this thing.
Thank you. Senator Vale?
From what DOC Logan was talking about, there's no current enforcement mechanism to actually enforce the student handbook on sort of the Senate as of now. So what if we just maintain that we reject this and just say no as a body? Is that's something that we can do and simply say we, the student senate, get to choose who our members are, not the student handbook? Because I mean, every single legislature in the world, that's how they do. They are able to choose their own like requirements and the ability to expel memberships and like why. And I think that's something that we should maintain as we are an independent organization.
Treasurer Ercolani.
I think, excuse me, yeah, so I think this gets into the issue of what the purview of the Associate Director of Student Activities position would be. Really quickly before I get into that, I wanted to make a note. On the Senator elections platform, if I'm not mistaken, we did have a statement where we said what the policy was, though it was not enforced. But to move into this, I think that would get into the purview of the staff position in that we don't necessarily know what would be, the Associate Director of Student Activities position, in what would be their purview, because we could certainly continue to, like, as long as we remain independent and do not have this sort of risk management, air quotes, oversight of by this position, we could continue to maintain our current election policies. However, should this person end up being, as I believe the position is currently intended to be, taking over the responsibilities of the Treasurer's Office in terms of who gets paid and their time cards, it is fully possible that I would see a world in which if we did not comply by this policy, any senator or any member of the executive or the cabinet or any member within a quote-unquote student leadership position within SGA, of which I can think of many, including people like the free sound managers and the SHIC admins, they could just stop paying them, potentially. And I think that is where we might run into a problem.
Do we have any further comments regarding this discussion? VPAA Murphy?
Also, if you have comments, if you have strong thoughts, the person you want to email is Ben Newhouse, Newhouse, @grinnell.edu, Dean of Students. He's going to be the contact person. Yeah, so email him.
Thank you. Do we have any further comments regarding this discussion? Anything further? No? Okay. Well, we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda then, seeing that there were no motions to move that to a committee or anything. So, the next item on the agenda, number 8, is another discussion, and it's on the student handbook changes to academic, wait, sorry, we just did that. Number 9, my bad. It's a report on the invitation to first Reform Committee meeting. So will that report be presented by AC Bolt?
No document. The first Reform Committee meeting of the semester is going to be at 11 a.m. on Tuesday this week. I've appointed Siamala as the Reform Committee Chair, Senator Gumidula, and her confirmation will be voted on at Reform Committee then, and I'll pass the mic to her for her to give a rundown of what the agenda will be for the meeting.
Thanks. Okay, so right now on the agenda, I have a few things that just have been brought up here at Student Senate. So there's the amendment to senators, hall council and senator projects within that. Also, President Becker talked about the Student Initiatives Fund Committee, so making that solid. Also, a few things like just to talk about. The resolution regarding the Associate Director of Student Activities, as well as what was brought up today. I can add that the resolution on the student leadership eligibility, as well as Since the resolution for the name change from Campus Council to Student Senate just passed, that means that the entire Constitution will probably have to be looked at. So if there's anything else that you guys would like to see, please come to Reform Committee Tuesday at 11, like Dylan said, in the SGA office. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have any comments on this report? Any questions? No, seeing none. Thank you for that report. We are going to move on to item number 10, which is a discussion on the new class timetable proposal. So whoever's leading that discussion could be, VPAA Murphy, if you want to start us off.
All right, so you may have seen in your email, so you may have taken a look at the Excel spreadsheet, this colorful thing. This is a proposal for a new class timetable distribution. The most notable changes here are down in the bottom right. The first one, obviously I think is one of the most important one, is the removal of Tuesday community hours from 11 to 12:50, where the registrar would currently does not allow any courses to be scheduled during that time. Just for context, from what I understand, this does not prevent other things from being scheduled that are directly related or required by class, like language labs, as I understand, do still meet during these community hour times. The other changes are generally things to just fix problems that have been seen. The second one is just pushing a time block back because there are very few classes that start at 9:30, which is also the third change, just removing that very unused time block. And then the fourth change is about removing a time block that just was frequently overlapping with tutorial, which was causing a problem for courses that people wanted first years in, just simply pushing it back so the first years can also be a part of those classes. And then the last item is just adding another time block that will fit during the what is currently community hours on Tuesdays. So what I was hoping to talk about is just getting everyone's thoughts. I'll be just sort of collecting these thoughts and bringing it to the curriculum committee, who will be voting on this proposal. If it's passed by curriculum committee, it then goes to a faculty meeting where it will be voted on by all of the faculty. So what I'd like to talk about is mostly the number one, but anything that people want to talk about, which is the removal of the community hours. I think the reason why this is doing this is to increase the times that language classes are able to be offered. A lot of 4-day-a-week language classes happen from 10 to 10:50. This will now allow them to also occur during the 11 to 11:50 time period. This makes it so that students I suppose are able to take lab, workshop, art classes that happen early in the morning for these 3-hour time periods. These students are also able to take language classes. And then also just generally the increase of time class options. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'll bring them to curriculum committee.
Thank you. We're now going to move into discussion. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Senator Collinger.
Would this limit the more events happening then, if there's less community hours, and also would it make it, I guess, more crowded and harder for just SEPCs or different student organizations to kind of spread their message?
VPAA Murphy.
Yeah, so I think one thing is, as far as limiting events, as far as I know, one of the big concerns was that the larger scale community hour events that occur on Tuesdays, like in this room, the sort of headlining options on this hour were very under-attended. But I understand that this is a time that is highly utilized by other student groups, like you're saying, SEPCs, other organizations, to use as a free meeting time. I think that is a very big concern. I think if other people also agree with that, I think that's something that is definitely a concern I'll raise.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Said I had? No? Okay.
Mostly
Go.
Mostly what I'm looking for is, what are your thoughts? Is the increasing times for language classes, another 4-day-a-week classes, is it worth the removal of this Tuesday community hour, or do people have a problem with that? I think this is the biggest area of debate, and getting more student input on this is really ideal.
Senator Stallings?
Just from like personally, my schedule has been like incredibly affected by like simultaneously being in language and labs, as a science major. So it's just some semesters I just haven't been able to do what I wanted to do like at all. There's just no way to make it work. And I would personally rather have the ability, like that one more option to make a class work, even if that means I miss 1 or 2 key events that I really would have wanted to go to. A semester worth of classes, the credits that come with that, and finishing a major on time as a double major was way more important to me than having the ability to go to a key event or 2. It's something that I'm sad that I would miss, but at the same time, I'm here to get educated and like go to my classes, and like that's what I pay for, so.
Senator Zernick?
This isn't in opposition to the proposal necessarily. I'm just concerned about D-Hall because the D-Hall rush is very affected by community hour and by this setup. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays especially, I think that I think it'll affect the volume of students in the dining hall and the ability of students to get lunch, possibly. So that's just a concern, something to think about, maybe discuss with dining committee or with, dining.
Treasurer Ercolani?
Just on that note, if I'm not mistaken, Tuesdays and Wednesdays during lunch are when the dining hall is the most understaffed in terms of student workers. Part of the reason that Tuesdays is less understaffed than Wednesdays, I think, is because of the fact that there is that community hour spot there, which allows student workers to be able to take that time out of their schedule and actually work a lunch shift, when traditionally lunch shifts are the ones that don't have the student employees, because they would either, many times there would be class on one end or both ends of whatever shift there would be, which is a very discouraging factor in trying to get a shift if you know that you have to go straight to class afterwards.
Senator Zernick?
Yeah, so just so you guys know, from the Assistant Director of Dining, the most understaffed shifts are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right now. And Tuesday and Thursday don't have that same issue because lunch shifts are 11 to 2. And the community hour that's set up allows that as long as they don't have an afternoon class conflict, like a 1 to 2 class or a class that starts at 1, then they can, but this would create 2 possible conflicts. And I share that concern that Tuesdays would then become severely understaffed and higher attendance in a shorter period of time.
Thank you. Do we have any further comments? Treasurer Ercolani?
This is very tangentially related, but I would also say that anything that makes dining hall understaffed increases the chances for shitty things to happen at dining hall, as we have seen happen very recently or very frequently. The less people they have, the more chances that there are that something goes horribly, horribly wrong, and dining's already really shitty at trying to make things go right even when they're fully staffed.
Senator Zernick?
I would agree with that. I would also add that it puts extra stress on students who are low income and have to work dining because of the availability of lots of hours and because of the highest pay rate. So it puts extra stress on the low income students that have to work in dining and then have to work the jobs of 2 or 3 people on those shifts because they're more understaffed.
Thank you. Contest Chair Christensen?
That definitely changes my opinion. I was before definitely in favor of this time slot because I've personally been affected by by having to take a language or wanting to take a language class and that really limiting what other classes that I could choose. But I'm also concerned that this is these issues with dining are more like issues that are like with dining regardless of how we schedule classes. And so I definitely understand where you guys are coming from, but I also feel like I don't know if it's necessarily the job of the people who are scheduling classes to also have to consider like dining's problems in scheduling students, which has a lot to do with the way dining services is run, in my opinion.
Assistant Treasurer Weber?
I actually think that's a really good point. I think what we're looking at here is like, we go to a small school, and like, we're all busy, and like, we have conflicts like all the time. So it's just a matter of like, yeah, you could be working in dining, you could be in class, but that's like any time of the day. That's not just lunch, you know, you could be going to meetings or whatever. And I think, yeah, like dining clearly has like a lot of issues that need to be resolved. And I think that like the focus should just be resolving those issues regardless of what the other conflicts are. Like optimizing people's experiences and also just, yeah, bringing dining up to speed, because like, yeah, it's ridiculous. But I do think that they aren't necessarily, I mean, ideally they just shouldn't be related issues.
DOC Logan?
Okay, this is a not dining related thing, just a thing about the community hour. Something that I noticed about Grinnell is like, despite the fact that we're so small, and I don't know how to say this, so like I'm like, if this comes out and doesn't make any sense, just be like, Regina, huh? Like, there are a lot of people like on campus, especially like in the adult world, that I just don't know. And there's like very little time that is like shared time as a campus where like I can just like be in the JRC and have a chance to see this professor's face, or like that, like community hour is like one of 2 hours that you can expect not just students to be around campus, but also teachers and staff and administrators, and like there's a chance for that interaction. And I just, from what I hear from other schools, like we have a very low rate of that. I just feel like there's very little student other people interaction unless you're like really involved, or if you're like in this specific club where like you hang out with like these, or like you're on the SCPC or something. And so I do worry about taking away one of the 2 hours where as an entire community, like 9 to 5, people are just like around and just because like I think there's value in the educational experience of just being in community with each other, even if it doesn't mean like attending a community hour event. Community hour to me just means that we are present for the needs of like not our academics, like for once, you know.
Senator Stallings?
Yes, so I'm hesitant also to like take out community hour given some of the perspectives that have been brought here, but simultaneously when it comes to, like I'm not really sure what the answer to it is, but simultaneously when it comes to like having this community hour as a person that works 35 hours a week, there's this shaved out part of the schedule that someone decided we should have that means that I really can't do anything productive. By that I mean I can't work, like I can't have a decent shift at my job. That's not an hour I can work at my job, and that's also not time that I can be in class, so that later in the day or earlier in the day I could have a decent shift. And that's something that's affected me personally as well. And I know that's something that other students struggle with when it comes to like having shifts, especially at food service in town, which is a really common employer for students on campus. And that's something else. Like I feel like no matter what, having it or not having it when it comes to affecting students like in this capacity that it's going to happen, I think it's the job of the people that want to do this and think that this is something that we should do, is trying to figure out how do you affect students the least, and how do you impact students and their experience the least.
Senator Hollinger?
VPAA Murphy, were there any other options discussed for, instead of getting rid of community hour? Because that's something that I feel like would be interesting to.
It's basically just like this proposal, where curriculum committee has narrowed it down to is it's this proposal or stick with the status quo, which is honestly very, very minor in comparison to, because most of these changes are contingent upon the removal of community hour. If community hour stays, then most of these other changes either can't happen or become really unnecessary. So it's you know, a major change that includes a few other minor changes, but it mostly comes down to the community hour removal as being a binary.
Ercolani, Treasurer Ercolani. My bad.
Another question for VPAA Murphy. How much will curriculum committee take into considerations the opinions of the student body that you've gathered here today, if at all?
Pretty seriously, curriculum committee I think is admirable for being one of the college committees that takes on the most student representation in terms of just the size of the committee itself. There's like a student from every division that's representing on that committee, and also some of the people there, like Joe Bagnoli, like really care about student perspectives. So I think probably quite a lot. Also, they've like slated out a time for me specifically to present to them, not just to like talk. So I think they care and they're listening intently.
Senator Zoni?
God, I hate being the voice for dining, but I want to just touch on that one more time and say that I agree dining has lots of its own problems and we shouldn't necessarily be responsible for all of those. But in implementing this will, I think the most significant thing is it will impact the lunch rush and the scheduling around that. So before putting this into place and in the process of implementing this, if this does move forward, I urge you to communicate with the Assistant Director of Dining and with Jeanette Moser, the Director of Dining, in efforts to kind of address that preemptively.
Senator Herbert? Can we get a mic down? Thank you.
Thanks. So this is just like a logistics question. So I noticed that on Tuesday and Thursday, there's a class from 10 to 11:50, and then it's cut short on Thursday. How is that going to play out? Like, what is that going to look like for classes?
I think the purpose is supposed to be for things like a lab, art workshop, where there is something that's more hands-on on Tuesdays, and then Thursdays would be like a lecture type of thing. I think there are other courses that sort of already have that schedule where there's like one day that's longer and one day that's shorter. It's supposed to just replace it because I think there have been some complaints about people who want to have like a roughly 3 hours of class a week, but doing 2 1-hour 20-minute periods has proven awkward.
Do we have any further comments regarding this discussion? VPAA Murphy?
I guess last thing, if people wouldn't mind, if we could do like a really informal vote on just like if we were voting on this issue, if that would be possible to just like open up the polls and just like have people just give their general opinion. Something that it would be helpful for me to understand how the council as a whole feels.
All right, the polls are now open. A is in favor, B is opposed, C is abstaining, and that is for just basically saying if you like or do not like the new class timetable proposal. So A is in favor for it, B is opposed, C abstaining. We need 3 more votes. 1 more. Okay, and the polls are now closed with 7 in favor, 8 opposed, and 3 abstaining. This hypothetically would not have passed.
Thanks so much for all your input. It's really helpful. I'll tell campus or the curriculum committee, and I'll give you all an update. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda. It is number 11. We have the cabinet reports. So AC Welch. Give me the mic. Thank you.
I have nothing to add.
Nothing to add? I just want to highlight, I think your last point is really funny. Burn the roof of my mouth on pizza rolls. Thank you.
Still raw.
Hi, LOL. All right. Treasurer Arcolani? Alrighty. Yes, Senator Pierce? Can we get a mic down to Senator Pierce? Just throw it. No, just kidding. Don't do that.
Okay, I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about the discrepancies with credit card purchases?
Yes.
Can we get a mic down to Treasurer Ercolani?
Yes, I can talk more about it. What would you like to know?
What are they?
So, we were, because of the fact that this transition happened between Wise to myself, I was doing, just like looking through some old financial transactions from the late summer months, just to like familiarize myself with the process. It was just like a really random thing that happened. And I saw a couple of purchases that I didn't recognize, and that Wise didn't recognize, and that Cab didn't recognize as being valid. And so we looked into those with the accounting office and discovered that there was about a total of $250 worth of purchases. Excuse me. One LED light strip from Amazon, one Bose Bluetooth speaker from Best Buy, and one Bose Bluetooth speaker charging cradle, also from Best Buy, that were purchased using SGA credit card information that we, as a cabinet, figured out like we did not order. So we're going through with the Office of Accounting to like the card has been deactivated, everything has been stopped, and we are going through with accounting to figure out like how this might have happened and what steps we can take to make sure that like there aren't fraudulent purchases made with the credit card in the future, like internet security and RFID blocking technology. We have a chip card now, like things are much more secure than they have been in the past, and it will not happen again.
Thank you for that clarification. Do you have anything to add on this? See nothing, we're going to move on to Assistant Treasurer Weber. Nothing to add. DOC Logan.
Nothing to add.
VPA Murphy.
If anybody's interested, please go to like the Carnegie like passageways. There are a bunch of chairs around. If you just want to sit in them and like email me like which one's comfy, these are the chairs that are going to be put everywhere in the new building. So if you have strong opinions on the chairs, like let me know, or like I guess don't complain for the next like 10 years that these chairs are here. Because student input's hard to get on chairs, but it's really important, and I know people have those opinions, so please email me. Just in they're tucked away in like the hallways in the back corners of Carnegie, like they should all be in public spaces. They're just around. They're also similar chairs, like there were some in ARH before, like last year, should be the same chairs if you've sat in them already. Also some of them are just around campus. Like if you have a favorite chair around campus, email me like a picture of it and I'll bring it to the building committee and I'll tell them that. And they care. They really care a lot.
Senator Herbert. Can we get a mic to Senator Herbert?
Hi, I just want to double check, has that gone through like Autumn Wilkie or something for accessibility, or are there people that are working on accessibility for the chairs as well?
Yeah, and for the tables and the integration of the technology, everything is also making sure to run through a lot of people to make sure that everything's accessible and also ideal, awesome looking and stuff.
Thank you. Senator Vail.
To follow up, where in Carnegie the chairs are, I saw them. So if you're entering in from the front, you take a right, and then there's Professor Ferguson's office. There's just an empty hallway that leads to nowhere, and there's a bunch of chairs in them. That's where they are. It's like a council of chairs. So go and sit in them.
Thank you. Do we have anything else to add on the chairs? No. All right. President Reverend Becker. Nothing to add. VPSA Tombo. Concerts Chair Christensen.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention that we So regarding Fall Fest as well, which I mentioned at the beginning of the summit, Sakamami and Sasami are playing during the day on the commencement stage as long as the weather holds out, and then we added the boy Illinois to our lineup, and he's going to be performing the night of Fall Fest in Gardner, and I include some links to his music videos if you want to check them out.
Thank you. Services Chair Totomo? Nothing to add. Ace Chair Mystic? Can we get a mic?
So, hi guys, I didn't put it in my report, that's why I'm telling y'all. So this weekend, this Friday, is going to be Kendrick Lamar Gardner. Yes, it's lit. Just like thinking about, self-gov when we go to these events, thinking about the words that are being utilized and the words that impact certain students. No, and seriously, for all safety of students and making sure that everyone feels comfortable in these spaces, because if it keeps going like this, then we're gonna have to do something about it. So come through, practice self-gov, and yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, don't vape in Gardner.
Could we get a mic to Max Hill in the back?
Where's the list of movie lineups for Harris on Fridays? Where down the hallway?
Could we get a mic back to Ace Chair Mystic?
But I'll post it on the Facebook page today, on the SGA Facebook page. But there's a poster right there in the lobby by the D Hall. It's a big ass poster. You'll see it. There's all the movies on there, and the starting times are 7:15, the first one, and then the second one is whatever based on how long the movie is in Harris Cinema. Thank you.
Was that a hand senator? Oh, I can't see your name tag. Senator? Nope. Yes. Stall. Okay, I have the Stallings.
Yes, that was a hand. Hi. So my question is who's hosting the Kendrick Lamar Gardner? And also, is there a plan in place so that I don't have to go crazy on people that night? You know what I mean?
Ace Chair Mystic?
I got you. So basically, that's what I've been doing with this afternoon. We will be meeting Ace Concerts and Michael Sims, everybody. We will be meeting with the host tomorrow afternoon to discuss safety procedures as well as just general policy that we will be having for this event. It's the same policy as we always have, but just reminding him what it is. And did I answer the question?
Who's hosting?
His name is Charles Carr. He's the same host as last year's Kanye Gardner. He actually has been proactive in reaching out to us in terms of making sure that this event is safe for all students. So he's doing his part, and we're gonna tell him, everything tomorrow. Any other concerns, though, you guys can definitely reach out to me, and I can voice those tomorrow in the meeting.
Thank you. Senator Zernig?
Yeah, I'm just curious what the policy we've always had is, because I had some first years who live on my floor come to me with concern or just talking, and they said, yeah, I saw this happen. Someone was using words that they shouldn't have been, and they didn't really know what to do. Is there a policy involving ACEs, or what is the policy?
Yeah, so basically last year in response to several events where we had bias incidents basically happening with language and yelling and all that type of stuff, we basically instilled in the contract that party host will sign that's from ACEs, basically stating that if ACEs as well as the ACE chair decides that this is, or is it just ACEs? Just ACEs. If ACEs decides that this event is no longer safe for the people there, they have the right basically to shut the party down. And that's just simply because of the fact that in previous events, we have told the host, this is becoming an issue, you need to do something about it, and the host hasn't really been proactive. So we want to make sure that, we're making sure that everyone's safe and keeping the decision in people who actually, can make a good decision, unbiased decision, I guess. Never mind.
Thank you. Excuse me, that was gross. Do we have any further comments? Nope. Oh, Assistant Treasurer Weber, sorry.
Okay, this is actually something that I wanted to add about my report. I mentioned this briefly, but I just wanted to say that as I'm finishing my first week of working on CAB, transitioning from being senator to being assistant treasurer, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to all the people who work on CAB. And I want you guys to know, now that I've seen them work, they're all so amazing. It's honestly incredible. So, yeah, you guys should know that. They're really great.
Deepa Murphy. Oh.
Amanda's amazing too.
All right, that is all the items on the agenda, except for the last one, the adjourning motion. I saw AC Welch. Okay, all those in favor say yeah. All those opposed say nah. All those abstaining don't say anything. All right, the meeting is adjourned.
Miles!
Did you say carry pen?